Hello, welcome back to the Honest Art Podcast. I'm going to talk today about something that can really propel our careers forward as artists, but it's not going to be what you think, right? We talk all the time about, really understanding our why and, making the best art and everything. But there's another element that is crazy, super important, and that is having an artist community. And I'm going to talk all about this. And by the end of this episode, you're going to be like, holy shit, this is the thing that I need. But before I do that, I have to confess that I never wanted to be a part of an artist community. I don't know if it's the fact that I am an introvert, if it's the fact that I'm stubborn. Actually, I do know exactly what it is. What it was I'm like, you know what? I've got a community. I've got a family. I've got friends. I've got other organizations that I'm a part of. I don't need another community to be a part of. But when I think about it, I know why I really didn't want to be part of a community, or what like my big resistance to it was. And that is, it was in my own insecurities. It's like, nobody can really tell if I suck as an artist more than another artist. And so I was so worried about, I would be found out, right? That, I'm a hack. I'm just doing the best I can here, but I'm not really any good. That's what I was really worried about. And the thing is that is the opposite of what happened. In fact, so many incredible things happened when I did have an artist community. So let's get into that on this episode. Let me give you some ideas for doing it, why you want to do it, and I'll show you what can happen when you're part of an artist community. All right, so are you ready? Let's get messy. All right, so as I said, I don't know if it's the fact that I'm an introvert. So many artists, not all, but so many artists are introverts. And so we enjoy our time alone, right? Deaths and all the problems aside, COVID was I'm like, shoot, I like being alone. I'm painting and all of that. But the other thing I feel like is, and this might surprise you, but I really do feel like I'm socially awkward. Put me in a room full of people. I just feel like I don't know what to say. I don't know how to make small talk or anything like that. I just kind of feel like I'm generally a little awkward. Ask me about art. I can talk about that all day long. And ask me about other things that I'm passionate about. I can do that. But as introverts, we don't tend to want to be a part of a community. And then, additionally, we really need that alone time as artists to make our best art, because really my experience is the thing that inhibits my creativity is when I've got other people around and, I feel like maybe there's some judgment about what I'm making, or, God forbid somebody would walk in or come by my painting when it's in the fugly stages. But then it's like there becomes this tipping point for us as artists. We're good with being alone, but it just takes that much more time alone to be, we're like, now I'm lonely, right? It is it's a fine line. And then, putting ourselves back out there again and being with people that can feel extremely vulnerable, but believe it or not, that vulnerability is what it takes for us to really be able to not only look at our art more objectively, right? It makes our art stronger, that vulnerability does. But when we have a community that where we can meet on a regular basis, where we can, I'm thinking about in one of my communities, I had this artist. And she just showed up one week and she just said, I have to tell you, I'm feeling down. I'm really having a low moment for myself as an artist. And it just took such vulnerability for her to say that in our community. But I always make it the utmost importance to create a safe space in our communities, because creating art is a vulnerable, thing to do. Anyway, she shared that she was really low, that she hadn't sold paintings in a few months, but even worse than that, she had applied to an exhibition that she had been rejected from, rather. And then, I know you're going to know what I'm talking about here. Then she was in this weird phase with her art where she just felt like everything she did was like the Fuglies, like painting after painting after painting. And so the great thing that her vulnerability did for us in our community is it allowed the rest of us to go, oh my gosh, I know what that feeling is like. And then to be able to reflect back to her that what she's going through is normal. And, in my communities, I always try to, share my 21 years of fumbles and my successes. Well, I don't gatekeep anything. I've made a million mistakes, but part of the mistakes is that I can help other artists. But what happened there with her is when she shared that, I was able to, we were able to encourage her in that this is just a slump. But here's the thing is, like, with her art, I was able to share with her that usually when we get into that rut or we even feel like we're going backwards in our art, that's actually usually when a new, not style entirely, but like something new wants to be birthed through us as an artist. And the reason we're having such a hard time with that is because we know like what we've always done. And so we try to do what we've always done. And we aren't opening up and allowing space for something new to come in, right? We are attached to the outcome of what we think it needs to be. And so that is going to create fugly painting after fugly painting after fugly painting. But it was because of the community that she was able to, by the next call, when we got together, she was able to say, look what I did. Look at this. Like, look what came out. She was showing us her painting. It was amazing. And she's like, I just feel so much better. But it was the community that led to that. So imagine for us as artists, imagine if we didn't have that community. Imagine if she didn't, right? It could take months of being in those fuglies. It could take months of really feeling bad about ourselves. It could just take so much longer to get to where we need to go creatively and professionally than it needs to take. It just doesn't have to be that way. So community is of the utmost importance when it comes to that. You don't even think about community in terms of creativity, but it's really, really real. Here's another thing about community that I have found is so important. And that is that we as artists don't tend to network very well. And again, that could go back to, we're introverts, for somebody like me being a little awkward. We don't tend to know how to network. You're like, what does it even mean to network? So when you have community, when you're part of an artist community, that networking could be something like, maybe, okay, here's my cat. Come on, are you going to come up? And so imagine that like you live in some small town in one part of the country, and you're interested in applying for a gallery in some other area. Well, someone else in the community could be like, I've seen this happen over and over again. Oh my gosh, I know somebody in that area, or I know an artist who is represented by this gallery. And then that networking, they connect each other, and then oftentimes that artist now has a connection for the gallery and can get into the gallery, right? Or sometimes what I've seen happen in my community is there is an artist that wants to do her first art fair or his first art fair. And, they're like, I don't know what to do. Well, then somebody else in the community can say, okay, why don't I send you a list of all of the things that I needed for my art fair, and I'll just send that to you. I mean, think of the time that saves us Now, one other thing I want to talk about as far as being in part of a community that I've found to be super, super, super helpful and help artists succeed is remember, like anything we want to do, whether it's selling art direct to collectors or galleries or working with art consultants or licensing, or it doesn't matter what it is, it all comes down to the art, right? The art has to be good. It has to be the very best art that we can create. And at least in my communities, it's the only place I offer art critiques because that's how we get better. Now, my art critiques, by the way, are nice. They're not like vicious, mean, because I mean, let's face it, art is subjective. What we like, it's not about what we like. I always make the critiques like, okay, how can I support the artist, but also give them really constructive ideas to make the strongest art possible. Not to mention the fact that it's just freaking fun, right? I have a community that I have started because I've been asked for it for years. I had never had the time to do it. I have created the time to have this program now. It's called the Rebel Artists Society because, frankly, my favorite people have always been rebels. And I think there's a lot of different ways to do things, right? And so in the Rebel Artist Society, we create that community. We create that safe space. We have 2 calls a month. We have a quarterly art critique. The artists in the Rebel Artist Society, they get a discount off of all my programs, all of my workshops. They get supplies, like they get PDFs and they get downloads, they get trainings, they get all kinds of things to enhance their art business, or maybe they just want to, be a part of a community and just start having more fun and enjoying themselves more and not feeling lonely and like they're on this path solo and have to figure it out all on their own. So I've got the Rebel Artist Society. If you want to learn more about our sweet little society, please go to the link in the show notes and check it out. All right. Thanks so much for joining me again for another episode of the Honest Art Podcast. If you feel like you've got, good information from this or it adds value to your day, please, give it a 5-star review. A 5-star and a review. That would be awesome. That lets other people be able to see the podcast. It gets it out there a little bit more. It really, really helps us out. All right. Until next week, take good care of yourselves and each other. Peace out.